Well, this is live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and coming up in the next 60 minutes. G20 summit in Brazil enters its second day today. Prime Minister Modi to address the session of sustainable development and energy transition. India-UK to relaunch trade talks in 2025 underline importance of resuming the FTA or free trade agreement negotiations. And Lebanon Hezbollah agree to US proposal for ceasefire with Israel. US envoy to travel to Beirut for further talks. And we begin with G20 summit in Brazil. G20 summit has entered its second day today, where the leaders of the group will meet to discuss crucial issues. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is attending the summit in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro, will be addressing the session of sustainable development and energy transition. Earlier on the first day of the G20 on Monday, the Prime Minister took part in session on fight against hunger and poverty. Prime Minister Modi also met the several leaders on the sidelines of the summit. The priority points across all the bilaterals were to review the cooperation in various areas of mutual interest. DD India's Gautam Roy is in Rio de Janeiro, and he filed this report earlier telling us what's in store for Prime Minister Modi and other leaders.
Well, on day two as well, a lot of activity planned really in terms of Prime Minister Modi as far as his engagements are concerned. More bilateral engagements on the anvil. They've not been confirmed yet, but there could be as many as 4 or 5. Apart from that, the IPSA could have a meeting as well. That's India, Brazil and South Africa, a grouping that has been the troika as well as far as the G20 summit is concerned. Apart from that, there's a session on energy transition and sustainable development as well, which Prime Minister Modi will be participating in along with the other leaders. So there's more to come as far as this G20 summit is concerned, because that is one area, energy transition, which is crucial to how the world responds to climate change. Sustainable development is again an issue where a lot of funds need to be mobilized, keeping in mind that development is taken on a track where it gels well with the environment as well. So a lot of funding in that arena too, apart from responding to the kind of disasters that are taking place because of climate change. That is another track that could further be elaborated.
Staying with G20, the leaders attending summitry in Brazil released G20 Rio de Janeiro leaders' declaration on Monday earlier, outlining their concerns over major global challenges and crises, including social inclusion and the fight against hunger and poverty. At the summit, Prime Minister Modi, in his opening remarks, spoke about India's efforts to alleviate hunger and poverty.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the G20 session on social inclusion and the fight against hunger and poverty in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The Prime Minister spoke on a number of issues, including India's efforts to alleviate hunger and poverty, amplifying the concerns of the Global South, push for sustainable development goals. The Prime Minister said that the people-centric decisions taken at the G20 summit in New Delhi have been taken forward during Brazil's presidency. The Prime Minister expressed satisfaction over prioritizing SDG goals. The Prime Minister said that India focused on inclusive development, women-led development, and youth power, and gave wings to the hopes and aspirations of the Global South. The Prime Minister noted that it is clear that one Earth, one family, one future is as relevant at this summit as it was last year. The Prime Minister also shared India's experiences and success stories. He said that over the last 10 years, India lifted 250 million people out of poverty, while over 800 million people are being given food grains free of cost. 550 million people are benefiting from the world's biggest health insurance scheme. Now, 60 million senior citizens over the age of 70 will also be able to benefit from free health insurance. Maintaining a focus on women-led development and social inclusion, over 300 million women micro-entrepreneurs have been linked to banks and given access to credit. Under the world's largest crop insurance scheme, over 40 million farmers have received benefits worth $20 billion. Under the farmer scheme, assistance worth over $40 billion has been given to 110 million farmers. Institutional credit worth $300 billion is being given to farmers. India is not only ensuring food security, but also focusing on nutrition. The Saksham Anganwadi and Nutrition 2.0 campaign, which is an integrated nutrition support program, focuses in particular on nutrition for pregnant women, newborn babies, children under the age of 6, and adolescent girls. Through the midday meal scheme, special attention is also being paid to the nutritional needs of school-going children. The Prime Minister said that India is also contributing to global food security. India provided humanitarian assistance to Malawi, Zambia, and Zimbabwe recently. The Prime Minister noted that the main reason for our success is our approach, back to basics and march to the future. PM Modi remarked that we have focused not only on natural farming and organic farming, but also on new technologies. Besides, India also focused on sustainable agriculture, protection of the environment, nutrition and food security by promoting Shri Ann or millets. India developed more than 2,000 climate-resilient crop varieties and has started the Digital Agriculture Mission. India's digital public infrastructure enables social and financial inclusion. Besides, India created a new model for inclusive development that strengthens the weakest link with the aspirational districts and blocks project. The Prime Minister also said that India supports Brazil's initiative for a global alliance against hunger and poverty. This is an important step towards the implementation of the Deccan High-Level Principles for Food Security adopted at the New Delhi summit. The Prime Minister also highlighted the concerns of the Global South, saying that the countries of the Global South are most adversely impacted by the food, fuel, and fertilizer crises caused by global conflicts. He said that discussions can only be successful when we keep in mind the challenges and priorities of the Global South. And just as we amplify the voice of the Global South by granting permanent membership of G20 to the African Union during the New Delhi summit, we will reform institutions of global governance. With input from Gautam Roy in Brazil, Fuzail Ahmed reporting for DD India.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met several world leaders in Brazil on the sidelines of the G20 summit and discussed ways to improve and strengthen bilateral ties. One of the major bilateral was Prime Minister Modi's meet with UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Monday on the sidelines of the ongoing summit. Both leaders underlined the importance of resuming the free trade agreement negotiations at an early date and expressed confidence in the ability of the negotiating teams to address the remaining issues to mutual satisfaction, leading to a balanced, mutually beneficial and forward-looking free trade agreement. In fact, this was the first meeting between two prime ministers. The two prime ministers reaffirmed their commitment to strengthen the India-UK Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Prime Minister Modi announced the establishment of two new Consulates General of India in the United Kingdom in Belfast and Manchester. They also exchanged views on issues of mutual interest, including on international and regional issues of significance. And Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, also held bilateral meetings with leaders of France, Italy, Norway, Portugal, Egypt and South Korea on the sidelines of the G20 summit. Details in our next report.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi held bilateral meetings with a number of world leaders on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Prime Minister held talks with the French President Emmanuel Macron. The leaders agreed to advance cooperation between both countries in sectors such as space, defense, energy, technology and more. The leaders talked about how India and France will keep working closely in sectors like space, energy, AI, and other such futuristic areas. Prime Minister also complimented Macron on the successful hosting of the Paris Olympics and the Paralympics earlier this year. Prime Minister also held a bilateral meeting with his Portuguese counterpart Luis Montenegro. The talks focused on adding more vigour to economic linkages. Sectors like renewable energy and green hydrogen offer many opportunities for more collaboration. The leaders also talked about strong defence relations, people-to-people linkages and other such subjects. Prime Minister noted that India cherishes the long-standing ties with Portugal. Besides, Prime Minister Modi also met with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni on the sidelines of the G20 summit. The talks centred around deepening ties in defence, security, trade and technology. Leaders also talked about how to boost cooperation in culture, education and other such areas. Prime Minister said that India-Italy friendship can greatly contribute to a better planet. Besides, Prime Minister also met with Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store. The discussions focused on ways to deepen India-Norway bilateral relations, particularly in trade and economic cooperation after the signing of the India-EFTA TEPA. The leaders also exchanged views on geopolitical issues. Prime Minister held a bilateral meeting with the Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto. Taking to social media platform, Prime Minister said that this year is special for both countries as we are marking 75 years of diplomatic relations. Talks focused on improving ties in commerce, security, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, among others. Fuzail Ahmed's report for DD India.
On the sidelines of the G20 summit in Rio, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. The leaders noted the progress in the recent disengagement in the India-China border areas. In a post on X, on platform X, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar said that both sides also exchanged views on the next steps in the bilateral ties. They also discussed the global situation. Shifting focus to COP29, where climate summit is underway in Azerbaijan's Baku. Speaking at the news conference, the COP29 presidency leader negotiator thanked the G20 grouping for their support for a successful new collective quantified goal outcome.
The G20 has now issued its leaders' communique, and we are grateful for the support they have pledged for the COP29 presidency. We appreciate the signal that they have sent of their intention to accelerate the reform of the international financial architecture. We thank them for their support for a successful NCQG outcome in Baku. We now need to translate political will into practical work.
India's Minister of State for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Kirti Vardhan Singh, is in Baku for the COP29 summit. Taking to platform X, the minister said that he was looking forward to presenting India's views on collaborative solutions to combat climate change while respecting the principles of equity and CBDR-RC. That is the common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. He added that the global gathering offers an opportunity to move towards achieving the goals set by the Paris Agreement. On the sidelines of the COP29, Kirti Vardhan Singh also delivered a key address at the International Solar Alliance. Minister emphasized the crucial role of solar energy in the energy transition in the global south and also highlighted Prime Minister Modi's initiatives that reflect India's vision and commitment to solar energy. He also stated that India has been at the forefront of solar energy development and deployment. A good news to share for India's oil and gas sector. Director General of Hydrocarbons, the regulator for the oil and gas exploration, has shared that Oil India will be spudding a well in Andaman Nicobar oil field on Wednesday, which is aiming for stability in oil prices to aid exploration. The company saw significant growth in oil and gas production last year and plans to achieve ambitious targets while committing to net zero by 2040.
Another way of increasing production is faster monetization of existing oil and gas discoveries and making new discoveries through, as I said, enhanced exploration efforts. Now, just as I'm talking today, I'm really happy to report to all of you that oil tomorrow is going to be spudding the well in the Andaman Basin, and we're all cheering for that, and I think we can do a round of applause, because Andaman is something which both ONGC and oil are keenly looking at, and we are expecting this to be, we're always crossing our fingers that we find this to be the new Mumbai high and maybe overtake that in the future.
Director General of Hydrocarbons also said that the new Oil Fields Regulation Development Amendment Bill 2024 is expected to be passed in the winter session of the Parliament.
A very important development is also that the ORD Amendment Bill has already been tabled before the Parliament, and we expect that the very forward-looking changes which have been put forth, it's there in the public domain, so industry partners may like to have a look, and we would welcome suggestions when we go about framing our rules. Now, some very important concessions or changes which are going to be made is that the whole exploration of petroleum and gas is going to be out of the definition of mining, because we have been sort of crying ourselves hoarse that we don't do mining, we do drilling, and our drilling is very different from open cast mining, and therefore the impact on the environment, etc., has to be seen with that viewpoint.
And still to come on this edition of DT India Live. Coming up next, on the other side, we talk about 1,000 days of Russia-Ukraine conflict. European Union foreign ministers discuss Ukraine in Warsaw talks. And in New Zealand, thousands rally outside Parliament against a bill that seeks to alter indigenous rights. And in Hong Kong jails, 45 democracy activists and nearly 45 pro-democracy activists sentenced to prison.
G20 meeting taking place in Rio on the 18th and 19th of this month. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be participating here as well, along with the leaders of the world's 20 largest economies, who will be deliberating on key issues such as eliminating hunger and poverty, sustainable development. For all the latest on the 2024 G20 summit in
You're watching DT India News Hour. I am Sakal Bhatt, and now let's move on to Russia-Ukraine conflict, where Tuesday marks nearly the 1,000th day in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, where both sides continue to engage in fierce military operations, while global diplomatic efforts intensify to address the escalating crises. Russian forces have captured the Ukrainian settlement of Novseledivka in eastern Ukraine. That's the latest on the onslaught. Advancing village by village, Russia since August has recorded its fastest gains in Ukraine since the first year of the conflict. Russian air defense forces also shot down 5 Ukrainian ballistic missiles and at least 85 drones over the last 24 hours. The foreign ministers of Poland, France, Germany and Italy meanwhile met on Tuesday in Warsaw to discuss Ukraine, the incoming Trump administration and developments in West Asia. Outgoing US President Joe Biden's administration has approved Ukraine's use of US-made missiles to strike deep into Russia. This marks a significant reversal in Washington's policy on the Ukraine-Russia conflict. The change in doctrine has been warmly welcomed by most EU heads of the state. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky on Tuesday urged Europe to push Moscow harder towards what he described as a just peace. He was addressing the European Parliament, marking 1,000 days since the conflict with Russia began.
Putin has brought 11,000 North Korean troops to Ukraine's borders. This contingent may grow to 100,000. Putin is focused on winning this war. He will not stop on his own. The more time he has, the worse the conditions become.
While NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte stressed that Ukraine will need more aid and more money in order to prevail over Russia, as he arrived for a foreign affairs and defense meeting with members of the European Union in Brussels.
Today marks 1,000 days of the full Russian onslaught, the unprovoked full Russian onslaught on Ukraine. So today we'll discuss how we can help Ukraine to prevail. That means more aid, more money, and we have to make available to them, particularly now that the North Koreans have come on board. And we know that China is helping Russia with the war effort. We know that Iran is supporting Russia with the war effort.
Shifting focus to Israel conflict, the West Asia conflict with a flickering flame of peace, so to say, in West Asia has gained some strength and momentum, and Lebanon and Hezbollah have agreed to a US proposal for a ceasefire with Israel. And this is the most serious effort yet to end the fighting on Israel's northern border. Here's more.
US Special Envoy Amos Hochstein arrived in Lebanon for truce talks with officials on Tuesday. Hochstein, along with many French officials, have spearheaded the efforts for a ceasefire in Israel-Hezbollah war, which began in late September. Details of the proposal still remain unclear after it was delivered last week by the US ambassador to the Lebanese parliament speaker, Nabi Berri, who has been backed by Hezbollah to negotiate. World powers stress that a ceasefire must be based on UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which ended a 2006 war between Israel and Hezbollah. Its terms require Hezbollah to move weapons and fighters north of the Litani River, that is, north of the Israeli border. Israel has dealt big blows to Hezbollah since late September, killing its leader, Nasrallah, pounding wide areas of Lebanon with airstrikes and sending troops into southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, the ground situation remains tense on both sides of the border. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has admitted that despite a debilitating attack on Iran's defense production capabilities, its path to a nuclear weapon has not been entirely blocked.
We will still be tested for our ability to thwart the Iranian nuclear program. It's not a secret. It was published. There is a specific component in their nuclear program that was hit in this attack.
The UNSC on Monday called for a surge in assistance to reach people in need in the Gaza Strip, warning that the situation in the Palestinian enclave was getting worse. Bureau Report, DD India.
US President-elect Donald Trump has named former Congressman and Fox Business host Sean Duffy as his pick for Transportation Secretary in the next administration. In a statement announcing Duffy, Trump described the Wisconsin Republican as a, and I quote, tremendous and well-liked public servant, unquote. If confirmed, Duffy will oversee aviation, automotive, rail, transit and other transportation policies at the department with about $110 billion budget. Trump has vowed to reverse the Biden administration's vehicle emissions rules. He has said he plans to begin the process of undoing the Biden administration's stringent emissions regulations finalized earlier this year as soon as he takes office. And now shifting focus to Georgia, where police dispersed an opposition protest in Tbilisi earlier on Tuesday, arresting several people. The protesters had set up tents and barriers at a major junction at Tbilisi State University and security to protest the results of last month's parliamentary polls and demand a new vote. The October 26 election kept the governing Georgian Dream Party in power, but opponents say the vote was rigged. Many Georgians viewed the election as a referendum on the country's efforts to join the European Union. In New Zealand, thousands have rallied in front of the parliament on Tuesday in one of the country's largest ever protests to oppose a bill that seeks to alter indigenous rights. Massive crowds, estimated by police at 42,000, almost 42,000, gathered at Parliament, where treaty principle bill was introduced earlier this month by legislators. At the heart of the protest is the 184-year-old Treaty of Waitangi, which is a historic agreement between the British Crown and Maori chiefs that underpins New Zealand's governance. Protesters argue the bill dilutes Maori rights by reinterpreting key clauses in the treaty. In what can be described as a landmark trial, Hong Kong court sentenced 45 activists on Tuesday for up to 10 years with conspiracy to commit subversion under a national security law imposed by China. Total 47 pro-democracy activists were arrested and charged in 2021. The activists were charged for plotting to paralyze the government by engaging in potentially disruptive acts, and they've been elected. Had they been elected, the government said that the Democrats have been treated in accordance with the local laws to restore order after mass pro-democracy protests in 2019. The trial has drawn criticism from many countries, including US, UK, Australia, whereas China's foreign ministry said that it firmly supports Hong Kong's efforts to safeguard national security.
We believe that this sentencing reflects the severity of the crime and also demonstrates that crimes endangering national security must be strictly punished. The harsh sentences send a clear message to society that we will not tolerate any actions that threaten national security, including attempts to subvert a state power. We will thoroughly review the sentencing details and consider whether to appeal the individual sentences.
Germany has long complained about a lack of skilled workers, and the country's economy has been paying a price for it now. Some German companies are appealing to the government to step in and help. Lars Holter is with Doordarshan and joins me from Berlin live. Let's quickly go and understand this development. Lars, to begin with, what are you hearing about this latest initiative by your government?
Thanks for having me. Yes, indeed, Germany is having massive problems filling skilled and specialized jobs. Much of it has to do with the country's demographics. Over the past few years and also for the next couple of years, we will have the so-called baby boomer generation retire. That's a massive part of the German workforce, and there are not enough young people coming after to fill those jobs. So we've been having problems in all kinds of business sectors. It takes longer to build homes. It's hard to find plumbers and electricians. There are not enough nurses and people working in care. And yes, in the high-tech field, there's so much unfilled demand for skilled workers that it's been slowing down progress. Now, the Association of German Startups says that the government should cut bureaucracy and lower hurdles for immigrants, make it not only more attractive for people from abroad to come and work in Germany, but make it easier and faster. Here's just one mind-boggling fact about immigrating to Germany for work. You can't actually file for a work permit if you can't provide a lease for an apartment. However, it's almost impossible to find an apartment and rent from abroad, like before you're even here. It would be so much easier to let people come here, start work, and deal with finding accommodation then.
So having said that, what do you think is going to be the future course of action? What is going to happen in all likelihood? Will your government, will the German government ease these immigration laws, Lars?
Sad part, right now we're in a bit of a crisis with a three-coalition government in disarray, and we're heading into elections early next year. So for now, it seems no one is going to do anything, and then everything takes a while here. Once we have a new government, we'll see what the priorities are. But one thing is certain, we've known, and I mean politicians have known, about the lack of skilled workers in Germany for a long time. So it should definitely be something they'll be working on quickly, especially since there are some ideas out there that would be rather easy to put in place, including digitalizing the immigration effort. Then again, even that isn't really easy in Germany, where generally digitalization hasn't gone as far as one would like. But the pressure is certainly there, and it doesn't come just from outside groups. As a matter of fact, the economy ministry has just put out a report stating that more needs to be done to attract workers from abroad, including actively recruiting in other countries. So I guess the political will is there. It's just unclear how fast the government can act on it.
Right. The government certainly has a job cut out for them. And thank you very much, Lars, for joining us live from Berlin. And still to come on DT India News Hour, coming up next on the other side. Guyana is all set to welcome Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. We'll get you reports related to that big story on the other side. And Goa in India is all set for the 55th edition of the International Film Festival of India.
geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Less than 100 kilometers from.
You're watching DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and before we move on, let's do a quick recap of the headlines at this hour. G20 summit in Brazil enters its second day today. Prime Minister Modi to address the session titled Sustainable Development and Energy Transition. India and United Kingdom to relaunch trade talks in 2025, underline importance of resuming FTA negotiations. And the Lebanon Hezbollah agree to US proposal for ceasefire with Israel. Meanwhile, US envoy is to travel to Beirut for further talks. And now moving on to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's next destination on his three-nation tour, that is Guyana. His upcoming state visit to Guyana is set to strengthen bilateral ties across various sectors between the two nations like trade, energy and agriculture. And to discuss the significance of this visit and India's growing partnership with Guyana, DD India's correspondent Siddharth Bhardwaj spoke exclusively with Dr. Amit Delong, India's High Commissioner to Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Take a look.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to embark on a historic state visit to Guyana. This will be the first visit by any Indian Prime Minister in almost 5 decades. To talk more on this, I have been joined by India's High Commissioner to Guyana, Dr. Amit Delong. It's an exciting moment for both India and Guyana. Incredibly pivotal moment for both the countries, isn't it?
A visit at the prime ministerial level is happening after almost 5 decades, 56 years to be precise. And there's a lot of excitement, a lot of optimism and hope as to what this visit of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji to Guyana would mean for the people in general. And I think that considering the kind of relationship that our two countries share, and especially the leaders, President Muhammad Irfan Ali and our Prime Minister, I am confident that we will have excellent results coming out of this visit.
What do you have to say about diaspora's role, in bridging the gap between both the countries?
The diaspora and the Indian community in general are looking forward to this visit because traditionally our two countries, they are very closely bound because of the culture, the common culture and traditions, and the fact that many of the Guyanese, they consider India still as their motherland because their ancestors came from India. And that connection, in fact, is still alive. They look at India, and especially in the recent years, considering the profile of Honorable Prime Minister Modi and what he has done, his global profile, everyone is excited that the global leader like Narendra Modi ji is visiting their country, and they have a lot of respect and admiration for India. I think it will be visible during the visit as well.
Guyana is experiencing a significant transformation in terms of its economy thanks to its booming oil sector. Could you tell us about how this visit will strengthen the energy ties between India and Guyana?
Since 2019, when the actual exploration and the oil extraction started in Guyana, today Guyana is one of the major producers of crude. And in the coming years, probably the production is going to increase even more than that. And on the other hand, there is India or Bharat, for example, because we are also one of the fastest growing major economies. We are the major I would say in terms of development as well. We are experiencing a very fast growth and we have a lot of demand for oil. So we are among the major consumers of oil today. So we are natural partners, I would say, because Guyana is a major producer, we are a major consumer, and the kind of relationship that we share, I think it's a win-win situation. What I expect, if you ask me, India has a lot of expertise. So we don't really look at it only in commercial terms as if they are going to sell to us and we are going to buy, but we have a lot of expertise, technical expertise across the stream. So upstream, midstream, downstream, everywhere our companies are one of the best known in the world, and a lot of expertise to offer, training, exploration, marketing, you name it, and we have expertise. So I think hydrocarbon cooperation is going to be one of the major areas for cooperation in the future, and this is one of the areas which I feel would also prominently figure in our discussion.
An MOU, like you just mentioned, hydrocarbons, an MOU was approved by the Union Cabinet chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in hydrocarbon sector. What if it goes through? What benefit both the countries will get? Considering the fact that India has an expertise and Guyana has rich oil and natural gas reserves.
Coming back to what I just said, in fact, yes, we have proven expertise when it comes to many of these areas, and already there's a lot of cooperation happening. We have received requests from the Guyanese side, especially, for example, in skill development, because this kind of activity requires a lot of technical expertise, a lot of infrastructure, and we will be in a position to provide that to Guyana. Even if we talk about, say, petroleum engineering and exploration and many of the allied areas, we can work in that area. So I think MOU of course is very much on the anvil, but I can also say that the cooperation has been ongoing. A lot of engineers from the Ministry of Natural Resources and other agencies, they are going to India, they take courses in India under the ITEC program and various other options that we offer. So I think already a lot of cooperation is happening, and it will increase further as an outcome, of course, of this MOU, but in general also as an outcome of this visit.
Ambassador, you've just talked about the ITEC program. So let me just ask you about cooperation in the education sector. With ITEC program, from where about 800 Guyanese professionals were trained, and Guyana's GOAL program, do you see any other programs in which both the countries are collaborating in future?
Yes, exactly. And we have, of course, the President, we have also the wife of the Prime Minister, she has been an ITEC alumni, and many other. So in fact, and something which I find very encouraging about President Ali, since you asked me, he also encourages many other young students and professionals that they should benefit from the ITEC program. Really? He actively encourages them that if you have to choose for a program, I recommend you to go for a course to India, because not only are institutes, they are institutes of excellence and best known institutes all over, but the kind of inputs which are offered by our institutions. So when the alumni and the ITEC scholars, they return from India, they get a glimpse of India, and they go with a certain notion about their imagination as to how India would be. And invariably when I come back, I get a feedback that they are positively surprised to see what all India has achieved, and not only in terms of the course, but in general what India has achieved, and it's very inspiring to see that.
Definitely, and speaks volumes about the fact that India has one of the best institutes in the entire world. Now, Ambassador, India's long-term vision in renewable energy and sustainable growth, seems like that both Guyana and India, they are supporting each other in their long-term energy goals. So how do you see programs like SHE, the initiatives like SHE?
Yes, I would like to second you, because yes, renewable energy especially has been one of the important areas for cooperation. You mentioned about the SHE program, of course I'll come to it. But in terms of the cooperation as well, Guyana is a member of International Solar Alliance, so we are actively collaborating with Guyana. We have implemented many projects. We are working, in fact, some of the interesting things which happened with Guyana in the past as well. So one of the major projects which we implemented was the solar-based traffic signals in Guyana. Then we are also working on the solar power project at the Chedi Jagan International Airport. So many of these programs are very much indicative of the kind of cooperation that we have in the renewable energy sector. The SHE program which you mentioned, which is basically the solar home equipment, it was a phenomenal success because under this program we had extended a line of credit and more than 30,000 households benefited from this, and most of them are from the hinterland communities. So the Amerindian, the indigenous population, they benefited a lot. As you know, in Guyana, we have they have 10% of the population which is indigenous or the original Amerindian tribes. Most of them they live in the hinterland, and there is no power source there, no electricity. So for them, the solar energy is the source. And I think the fact that India was associated with that, and we provided some Make in India equipment which was manufactured by a company in Rajasthan, it was a great success. And after the 30,000 equipment, 30,000 households benefited from it, realizing the potential of this sector, the government of Guyana decided to order 6,000 more equipment on their own. So which shows that how effective this whole program and the project was.
Definitely. And Ambassador, not just oil, Guyana at this current stage is, experiencing growth in sectors like healthcare, education, agriculture, infrastructure, and India's expertise in all these sectors is invaluable. So can you tell us about, how India is already contributing to all these sectors, and what more we could expect?
Some of the sectors that you mentioned, like agriculture, for example, we have again a very long-standing cooperation with them. We have been sending experts to Guyana in the field of sugarcane, rice cultivation, rice processing, spices. Most recent example of again a successful implementation of a project was we had supplied them with millet seeds, and earlier this year they got a bumper crop of millets.
Really?
And the president was very happy about it, because when he visited India last year in January 2023, he had discussion with Honorable Prime Minister, and it was suggested to him that millets are like superfood, and yes, so he was very much impressed, and after coming back he implemented this. And now Guyana, in fact, is looking at expanding it, and they are also planning to eventually also focus on other areas besides millets, soya bean, horticulture. So in general, what I also feel that there is a lot of potential, and it is again something which I would say is a big contribution from India, because food security is one of the important areas in which we work with our partners. So agriculture and food security is indeed an area where India and Guyana can collaborate a lot. I would also extend it further, that not only Guyana but our cooperation with other CARICOM member states is also something which we are looking at in terms of what we can do in the field of agriculture and food security.
Definitely. Ambassador, since you talked about food security and CARICOM, Guyana is already a breadbasket for CARICOM, the Caribbean nation, and it is planning to, cut down their food imports by 25% by 2025, and in fact India is helping them in doing that. Tell us something more about it.
Yes, so again, it is one of the areas which is identified by President Dr. Muhammad Irfan Ali as a priority area, and the program which you mentioned is part of his vision. Of course, Guyana has traditionally been well known in terms of rice cultivation. So I would say in terms of the food security, Guyana will definitely play a very important role within CARICOM, because Guyana has a lot of very fertile land. It has less population pressure, so it can definitely produce a lot of food which can then be exported to other CARICOM member states as well. Guyana itself will become completely self-sufficient. So that is the actual vision which you spoke about. And here India can definitely play a big role, because we have expertise, we can provide them germplasm, we can share our technologies, we can share our experiences and expertise. And a lot of teams from India, from our major premier institutions, they keep visiting India, visiting Guyana, and they advise Guyanese experts on various aspects like sugarcane cultivation, coconut processing, be it the rice cultivation and rice processing. So a lot of, I would say, a range of areas are there, even under agriculture, where there is scope for cooperation, and that basically is the thrust area in terms of what we can do with Guyana in the field of food security.
It certainly seems like a very promising future, for both nations. What all are the areas where we can expect cooperation between both the countries, apart from the sectors which we have just talked about?
So besides agriculture and oil and gas, which we alluded in our conversation, other areas which I feel are very crucial, and again because there are complementarities. So ICT, information and communication technology, is one area again where India has a lot of potential. We have proven our expertise. We have actually implemented some projects as well in Guyana. We have helped them to set up a IT center at the University of Guyana. We also work with the CARICOM. So again, that can improve further. Digital public infrastructure is again one area where we can work with them. We have offered them to help out with digital payment system like UPI. We are also offering them expertise in the field of e-governance and a lot of procurement of public goods using digital mode. So all these things, they are under the umbrella of the information and communication technology that we are working very closely with them. As I said, education again is an important area linked to what I said about the iTech program, but in general as well, because there are 3 medical colleges in Guyana which are run by institutions from India. Most of them are doing really well. We are also working and helping them in terms of forensic sciences. We are working with them in many other areas related to education. And you mentioned about a particular initiative which is called GOAL, which is the Guyana Online Academy for Learning.
Yes.
Now this is again one of the, I would say, visionary ideas from the government of Guyana under the leadership of President Irfan Ali. And at least 4 prominent universities, institutions from India are helping, they are part of this initiative. Under this initiative, many of the people, you have this concept where people who are not able to do full-time studies, they benefit from the online education system. So while they are working, they also have the option of studying, and so many people have benefited from this GOAL project. And what we are looking at now is probably expanding it further to include more universities, premier institutions from India under the GOAL scholarship scheme. And we already have inquiries from other CARICOM countries as well, whether this kind of a system could be extended to them as well. And I think it will be a game changer.
Definitely. Ambassador, what can you tell us about defense ties between both the countries? As a matter of fact, India has provided 2 228 Dornier aircraft to add to Guyana's fleet.
Yes, I would look at it also in a very broader sense, because it's not only about defense, because the 2 aircraft that we have supplied under the defense line of credit, the 2 Hindustan HAL 228-201 aircraft, they have multiple they can be used also, for example, medical evacuation, in disaster management they are useful. So they are, we don't really look at it only from the defense point of view, but the overall, benefit of that project. Guyana is also keen, of course, to explore cooperation in procurement of certain equipment from India. We are talking to them. We would definitely like to look at various options. Guyana is a very important partner for us, and we have a very long-standing relationship. So within that ambit of this very broad range of relationship that we have, of course, defense cooperation would definitely be an important area which we can discuss about.
We've covered topics from defense to trade to agriculture. What does the future look like when it comes to India and Guyana and their strengthening ties?
I think I would say I'm very bullish, because I see that there's a lot of potential. Of course, something which is very visible is that Guyana is, as I say, one of the fastest growing economies in this region and one of the major producers of oil. India is also one of the fastest growing major economies, and there are a lot of complementarities, and in addition to that, a lot of mutual trust and goodwill. So I would say that there is, of course, a lot of untapped potential. We can achieve a lot, and the future, I would say, is definitely bright because when we work together, we benefit from each other. We are natural partners, so I'm sure that this relationship is going to flourish and blossom in the future.
Well, thank you so much, Ambassador, for giving your valuable insights today.
Staying with Guyana, the Indian Arrival Monument in Georgetown stands as a powerful symbol of history and resilience, honouring the first Indian immigrants who arrived in Guyana way back in 1838. DD India's Prasar Bharati visited this iconic site to explore its cultural significance, also spoke to the members of the Indian community about their heritage and their expectations from Prime Minister Modi's upcoming visit.
India and Guyana share strong cultural ties. In fact, 40% of the total population in Guyana comprise of Indians. I am at a historic monument right now, which marks the arrival of Indians to Guyana. And now their descendants form strong social and cultural fabric here. And this is happening for the first time that any Indian Prime Minister is coming to Guyana for over half a century. I have some members from the Indian community here. Let's talk to them and let's ask them how excited are they.
I'm very excited like every other Guyanese because for us, he's an icon, he's a role model. And I remember one time I was in Bangalore and had the opportunity to he was at the Pravasi event and he said, and as a statement he made, it still resonates with me. And he said that despite Indians are across the world, their hearts beats for India. And for me, that's a very deep and a very profound statement. And for me, that is what makes it even more exciting that after so many years, Narendra Modi, who has really distinguished himself as a world leader, has won the admiration of many young people, especially. We followed his work, especially with the entire Ayodhya temple, the transformation that is going on in India. And of course, for us here, we're just excited to see what it brings for Guyana. Already Guyana and India has an excellent working relationship. Like I would always say that we are part of the DNA, you understand? We cannot separate India from Guyana because we are the descendants. We breed, we think, we live the culture, experience of India. So for such an iconic leader to visit us here, it's really and truly a testimony to the great relationship that exists between Guyana and India.
We are expecting a lot from Modi ji. He has visited Guyana here before, and when he was in the Parliament of India a few years ago, he's got very good friends also here. Now we expect Modi ji to, as the Indian youth is the strength of India. We want a lot of collaboration with the youth from Guyana and India, and we want to help, we want Modi ji to help Guyanese to get an excellent, broadband satellite network, so they can, it's very affordable for people to get on to the drive of digitalization, like what India has done.
The Indian community here in Guyana, they say that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit will certainly strengthen the bilateral ties between both the countries, and they also say that they expect a lot with Prime Minister visit. With camera person Saurabh and Senthil, this is Prasar Bharati reporting with DD India in Guyana.
And we, of course, on DD India will keep track of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Guyana visit. But as of now, that's all for this edition of DD India. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can catch all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. This app or application is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakalbat from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.